Hey guys, happy Saturday, happy weekend. I just wanted to pop in here super quickly and talk with you guys about these supposed new rules and regulations that they say are on the horizon. I've seen so much information being posted all across social media in our group and other groups that is not really accurate or conducive in terms of one, what's being proposed, and two, that it even has been passed, which it has not. So let's just kind of jump right into this. I'm going to tell you exactly what is being proposed because it's far more than just the 48-hour scope of appointment rule. I am going to talk to you about my opinion from what I'm being told from people in very high places, that names you probably don't know of the likelihood of this actually happening, and then what I believe as agents and brokers as a community that we should be doing as a result if they were to pass. Okay, so let's just kind of jump in because we have a lot of things to cover today. So first off, any rules or regulations that you have been told have not been passed. They are simply just proposals. Nothing has been passed. So in terms of when people are saying there's new rules, there are nothing that has been passed. There are no new rules as of yet. It's a proposal. So anytime, and this is not just in CMS, but anytime there is a new rule, a new law, anything that being proposed, it gets debated, it gets changed, even if it does pass, it ends up looking much different than what the original proposal was. And sometimes it never even passes at all, right? I saw somebody say that, it sounded like it was like a 99% chance of it passing. That is nonsense. I have not heard that from any credible source that I have talked to. I believe that it's about a 50-50 chance of it passing, okay? Now, 50-50 is perfectly good. It's a coin flip. So it's very possible that it might pass, and it's very possible that it may not. There's regulations all the time that get proposed on us. We just don't always hear about them. They're just not always put out there as publicly, right? So just keep that in mind. Now let's talk about what's actually being proposed. Proposed, not put in force. There are no new rules as of now that have been put into motion. Zero. None. Donut. But there are proposals that are being proposed. That is the key word here. Proposed. The new rules to me, and there's several. The one that people seem to keep harping on is the 48-hour scope of appointment rule, right? Which, if you're not familiar with what that rule was or what that rule entailed, when I first came into the business, that was the rule. And basically what it said was if you were to write somebody on a Medicare Advantage or a Part D prescription drug plan, you had to get a scope of appointment form signed 48 hours before the appointment, right? So you had to find a way to get them the scope, have them sign it, have it dated for 48 hours prior before you met with them and before you could sell them, right? So that's the one that people are harping on a lot. My take is the entire industry was subject to that rule years back. It was only eradicated maybe about 4 years ago. So it's not like it's been that long since that rule wasn't a rule. I also saw some, kind of miscommunication about if call centers would have to do it. My understanding is back in the day when the rule was in motion that call centers didn't have to do it. They were actually exempt of it. I could be wrong, but that's what I've always come to understand through my friends in the call center world. I think it was more just an independent broker thing, right? A field agent thing. So if it's going to be exactly the same as it was before, then it probably would be the same way, a field agent regulation, and not a call center thing, right? So keep that in mind also. But to me, that's a rule we've seen. That's a rule we've had. That's a rule that plenty of people survived, myself included. I don't believe that that is the end of the world. Is it a pain in the ass? Yes. Is it weird and makes absolutely no sense and it's an absolutely dumb government overreach rule? 100%. My dad always used to say when I was starting off in the business when I was really young, he always used to say, you can buy a house in this country, you can buy a car in this country, you can invest money in this country without a scope of appointment form, but to buy a freaking Medicare Advantage insurance policy, you need a scope of appointment form 48 hours before the sale. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. It's clearly just a freaking pencil pusher dork that doesn't know anything about the real world that thinks that rule is a good idea, but it is what it is. I don't think it's a big problem. It's an inconvenience for sure. And it's one of those things that I believe that doesn't need as much emphasis as it's getting. To me, there's some other things in the regulations that are more troublesome. The first one to me that really jumped out to me is the proposal is proposing that it bans the ability for third-party TPMO organizations, which essentially, if you're not familiar with what a TPMO organization is, it's an organization that captures people's information. It's a lead generator of sorts, right? Us as agents are TPMOs. Lead companies are TPMOs in the eyes of CMS. Things like that, right? So, and if there's going to be a Medicare Advantage sale that takes place and you purchase information from another TPMO, right? So like if I buy, what it's saying is a TPMO is not able to sell people's information to another TPMO to make a Medicare Advantage sale. The person that gathers the information as the TPMO would have to make the sale. So what does that mean, right? A lot of jargon. What that means is if that were to pass, you could not have another company sell you leads, do marketing for you that resulted in a Medicare Advantage sale. That's what that means. That's what that really means. And to me, that's the biggest hurdle with all of this. I think that is a far bigger concern than the 48-hour scope of appointment rule. Because if that's the case, and you're used to buying leads, or you're doing direct mail, or you're having someone do Facebook advertising for you, any of the above, and it's not you yourself that's generating the lead, it would then be against compliance to buy a lead for a Medicare Advantage sale. You'd have to generate it yourself or have somebody generate it on your own Facebook account for you or something like that. That would be like the only way to do it. You'd have to generate all the business yourself. It would eradicate the ability for third-party marketing organizations to be able to help you generate leads, which to me is ridiculous. Most insurance agents are not marketers. I know that there's a big push in the industry to encourage agents to learn how to market, and I'm one of those people that leads that charge. But let's just face it, the average insurance agent isn't a marketer, doesn't know how to properly market, doesn't know how to properly generate leads. And you know why? Because it can be difficult. It's hard for the average bear, okay? So that's why lead companies exist. That's why marketing companies exist. Now, you could still buy leads from marketing companies for Medicare Supplement, Final Expense, other things like that. But for Medicare Advantage, it would be a big no-no. This is the thing that I don't see people talking about enough, because I think that's a bigger deal for a lot of agents out there than you guys might be thinking about, right? There's also a couple of other rules that would go into effect, one of which that states you would not be able to door-to-door knock. You wouldn't be able to door-to-door knock if you got a lead for Medicare Advantage. That's my understanding of that rule. So I don't door-to-door knock. For some people that's a big part of their business plan or anything like that. If maybe they order a batch of leads, they can't get in touch with several of them, and they use that permission to contact right to go to their door, that would, from my understanding, go out the window. And then the educational event piece of this. So currently, for the educational event piece of this pie, you're able to run an educational event as things stand right now, and you can hand out permission to contact forms, scope of appointments at the event. This is what we do for our seminars. And we're able to schedule appointments with people the next day if we want to. One of the proposed changes is you would no longer be able to hand out any of those documents at the event. You'd essentially not be able to do anything unless the person approaches you or someone calls you later and wants to schedule an appointment with you. So it would severely dwindle the ability of what you're able to do at an educational event, which to me, that kind of sucks. So I think those two things right there, the TPMO to TMO data transfer piece of the pie, as well as the educational event piece of the pie, are far more pressing and to me bigger issues than the 48-hour scope of appointment rule. I really do believe that. So that's what's kind of being proposed. What I'm being told from my contacts is February 13th, there's going to be a meeting about this. And in February 13th is when they will actually decide. I think they're going to take a vote on it that's going to decide in terms of what's actually going to pass. I'm also being told that several of the largest carriers are planning on not allowing this to pass as is. They're going to try to throw their weight around. So whatever's being proposed today might not ever see the light of day, number one. Number two, if it does see the light of day, it might be dramatically different from what you all are reading about and understanding right now. So I've seen a lot of people saying, you need to prepare. Yes, you need to prepare, but how can you properly prepare if you don't know what's really going to pass and what's not? People are talking as if this is done. It's not done. It's a proposal. It's being discussed. It's being talked about. You guys need to know that it's being talked about, but to kind of proceed as if it's done and the world's ending, it's not accurate. So we need to wait and see in terms of what actually is happening. Now, I've also seen people talk about how we need to sign petitions. And there is a petition out. I think there's a petition out there that you can sign. That did a lot of good last year, didn't it? That did a ton of good last year. That was effort well spent for the regulations that took effect October 1st. This is an unpopular thing I'm about to say, and I get this. But I'm going to tell you guys straight in terms of what I believe is the right message for you guys to hear. CMS, the carriers, don't give a damn about you and me and our feelings and what we think about these things. They just don't. Even if they pretend to, even if they say they do, even if certain people in the companies say they do, and maybe they actually do. But the people that are making these decisions, they're going to do what they're going to do. And I think by really pushing the petitions, now if you want to go sign the petition, go sign the petition. But I'm not saying don't sign the petition, but putting it out there as there's, if something's going to pass that a petition has any prayer of having any impact of it not passing, holds out false hope to me, to agents that will spend more time hoping that these new rules don't go into effect. This is what happened last year with the call recording rules. Hoping that these rules and these proposed regulations don't go into effect, and then they don't spend any time preparing on it. They're just kind of thinking in the back of their mind, well, maybe it won't happen. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe it'll get reversed. And then it doesn't, right? Despite all of this hoopla. Sign petitions if you want to. I'm not saying that the petitions are a bad thing. Go ahead, sign them. I'll sign them. I signed the one last year. But I'm not expecting that it's going to do anything. I'm not expecting that I'm not going to have to make these changes and pivot in my business. If somehow there's a miracle and the petition actually had some kind of impact, which I don't think that it would, but if it did, then oh great. No big deal. But as I was saying, we don't know what the actual rules are going to be. They're proposals. Proposals typically go through a myriad of changes before they actually see the light of day, and that's if they ever see the light of day. So remember this. Understand it could happen, and if it did happen, we'd find out about it probably in the next 30 days, maybe 3 weeks or so. But if it does happen, it might not happen exactly the same way as what you're hearing. Again, they are proposals, not in stone, not passed. All right? So understand this. Now let's talk about worst case scenario. Let's let's say everything that's proposed passed as is. How does this impact your business? Well, to me, I think that when it comes to the 48-hour scope of appointment rule, it kind of goes hand in hand with not being able to buy Medicare Advantage leads or marketing. Because as I said earlier, the TPMO rule from one TPMO organization generating people's information into a lead and selling it to another TPMO, which lead companies, agents, agencies were all TPMOs in the eyes of CMS. It's essentially somebody that gathers information, somebody that markets something, and generates somebody that's interested in talking to somebody. If that part of it passed, you couldn't buy leads compliantly of any kind for Medicare Advantage. You'd have to do it yourself. You'd have to do all the marketing yourself. So if you're doing the marketing yourself, that must mean you're probably doing it with a lot of branding behind it. You're probably doing it with a lot of high intent marketing behind it, which means you'd have an easier time convincing people of the 48-hour rule. So they kind of go hand in hand. If both of them passed, a lot of agents would die. Not literally, but career-wise, they would die. A lot of people would not be able to handle both of those. I think it's more the lead part than the scope part, because getting enough leads to talk to is the biggest issue that most new agents face. And so if that ability and those options of where you can buy leads from and how you can buy leads dwindles like that because of that new regulation, I think that'll make it much harder to start as an independent. Impossible, no. Hard, yes. I saw somebody mention that if all these rules passed as is, you'd probably see far less independent agents, single independent agents starting the business. And you'd start to see people have to go the route of captive shops, LOAs, things like that. We'd probably see more of that because starting off by yourself, between the call recording and storage rules, the scope rules, having to do all your own marketing rules, all of this would make it incredibly difficult for a new individual independent agent to do business. And an agent would probably have to latch on to a more established, seasoned company that can take those burdens off of their shoulders. And I agree with that. I think that's probably what we would see. I think it's just kind of slowly making the one-man independent agent, the ability to start from scratch as a one-man independent agent probably would dwindle pretty heavily. I really do believe that. And I hate to see that. I think that sucks because I think that one-man individual independent agent is such a cool thing. I started as a one-man individual independent agent, but I also have had nearly a decade to grow my business. So now I'm not a one-man individual independent agent. I run an agency. I have employees. I have staff. I have a large organization now to where we can adjust, we can adapt. But a person that just got their license last month, that's starting from scratch, that's tough. I'll be honest with you. You can't buy leads. You have to generate your own. You have to do the scope 48 hours before. You have to record and store all your calls for 10 years. You have to do the disclaimer. Like all of these rules, I think for a brand new person, that's a lot. That's very difficult. So I think that's kind of the ripple effect if, say, all of these proposals were to go into effect. And that's kind of my thought process on it. I do believe you should be prepared, paying attention to this. You should be thinking now in terms of if all of these go into effect, how can I adjust in my business to make sure that I can roll with the punches? However, people are freaking out right now. They're panicking. I woke up this morning to like 20 DMs about this. And I'm like, guys, nothing's passed. We don't know exactly what the rules are going to be, or if there's even going to be any new rules. It's a proposal. It's something they're talking about, thinking about. Doesn't mean it's done. Should you be prepared? Yes. Should you be thinking about it? Yes. Should you be kind of brainstorming about how you would adjust and how you would kind of tackle those challenges? Yes, you should. You definitely should. But it's not doomsday. Skynet didn't send out the nukes yet. Just watched Terminator 1 and 2 in the last week, so it's fresh in my mind. Yeah, Skynet didn't go self-aware yet, guys. But just something to think about. Some things to think about. What I just laid out for you is exactly, to me, what's being proposed that makes... And there's a few other things that's being proposed that I didn't mention, but I mentioned the things that I think are the most pressing, that would have the biggest impact on my business and probably most people's businesses. And just pay very close attention to it. If you want to sign disclaimers, go find them, go sign them. But don't expect that they're going to do anything. I'm sorry. I know that's probably not the message that you want to hear, but I think it's probably the message you need to hear. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to kind of jump in here, share some insight, share what I'm being told by people in high places, and share what I've been able to kind of research and dig up about this, okay? February 13th, and probably shortly thereafter, we should know a lot in terms of what's going to happen. You might never hear about this again. You may not. Maybe it just doesn't pass. Maybe it gets squashed. We just don't know yet. So anyway, guys, I hope this video was helpful. I hope it kind of shed some light on what's actually going on right now. And of course, if you guys have any questions that you'd like me to answer, throw them in the comments of this video, and I'll make sure that I get your questions answered to the best of my ability in terms of what I know about what's going on. Ultimately, I don't know what's going to happen more than anybody else does, but I can share what I'm being told and what my understanding is of these rules. So anyway, guys, or proposed proposals. All right, guys, hope you guys have a blessed weekend, and we will see you next time, all right? Later.